Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's it going? Hope you're doing well. Hope you guys had a wonderful and safe Thanksgiving. We were not with you last week, but we did post the episode later on YouTube last week. Just so there was kind of that, if you missed that last episode, you could kind of go look at it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the YouTube, follow that. You can catch any of these that you miss back there. On YouTube, generally what we do is I generally timestamp everything so that you can quickly go to what interests you and what doesn't interest you. If I am a little low on energy today, it's because I'm feeling a little under the weather. But Zach will make up for my shortfall, I'm sure. So we got a good show for you tonight. We're going to be talking week 12 of the NFL. Hard to believe we're already through week 12. But we're talking week 12 of the NFL season, and yeah, Zach, I'll pass it over to you, and then we can go ahead and get started.
Yeah, we got a lot to touch on today. We missed, obviously, last week, missed you guys. Good to be back at it, and we'll kind of touch on really the last 2 weeks, just kind of things that stand out to us, standings, scores, how the NFL is just shaping up as we head into kind of the final month here, kind of looking towards playoffs. So lot to talk about. Excited. We got some good topics. Hopefully you guys can chime in too with any questions over in chat.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge point, Zach. You are right to mention that. I forgot to mention that, so I'm glad you did. If you guys have any questions throughout the show at any point in time, go ahead and drop those in chat. Let us know. We'd be happy to answer those and would actually enjoy answering those. So with that being said, Zach, why don't you kick us off? What's kind of going through our top 5 from, and I even forgot about week 11 that we didn't even touch on week 11, but
yeah.
So that adds a whole new array of games that I can look at as well.
Yep. I know.
Where was kind of your number 5 or your first thing you wanted to kind of touch on?
First takeaway, and just to preface this all, we're surely going to miss a few things here, unless you guys want to see us for like 3.5 hours. We're not going to be able to cover week 11 and week 12 and the future playoff picture in its entirety. So we're just touching on things that stood out to us. But the first thing for me, and we were texting about this like a week or two ago when it first happened, but the QB roulette that the Dolphins are running. And it's working. Ryan Fitzpatrick is looking good. It doesn't seem to matter really who's in there. But the Dolphins are 1 game back of the Bills. And my question to you really is, do you think they can win that division? Do you think they can lock up that playoff spot?
That's a great question. I don't know. What's the rest of let me look what the rest of their schedule looks like. Yeah. So they've got,
schedule at this point is huge, right? We're in the last month.
Yeah.
Teams have 4 or 5 games left?
They have 5 games left. So they're playing a hot 49ers team. So easily in LA. I'm sorry, not in LA. They're in Arizona because the 49ers were not allowed to come back to Santa Monica County. So, there's 1 game that they could lose. It depends on how the 49ers are feeling not being, being away from home. How are the players managing not being with their families? Because, I'm sure none of their families are there with them. So, and then they have the Steelers come to town, another game that they could theoretically lose. And then they play the Broncos, the Patriots, and then they end the season on the Dolphins. I really do think that, so that's their schedule. What did the Dolphins?
You said the Dolphins for the last game.
Dolphins are their last game. The one before that one was
Niners?
Patriots.
Were you looking at the Niners schedule there or the Dolphins?
No, that was looking at the Bills schedule.
Oh, you're looking at the Bills. Sorry. Okay.
And then the Dolphins schedule. Well, because you asked me if I thought they could make the playoff, win that division. The Dolphins.
I thought you were just starting with the Dolphins.
No. The Dolphins have to play the Bengals this week with no Joe Burrow. That should be a fairly easy game for them. Then they have to go play the Chiefs. Chalk that to an L. Then they have to play the Patriots. they'll probably win that game unless Bill Belichick pulls something out. Then they got to play the Raiders, and the question really becomes which Raider team shows up, and then they play the Bills. So I mean, honestly, there's at least two losses there, two guaranteed losses for both those teams, or potential guarantees between the 49ers and Steelers for the Bills, and for the Dolphins, you've got the Raiders and Chiefs that are both two games that are going to be there. So I mean, this could come down.
Exciting Week 17.
This may come down to January 3rd. This may be the deciding game for that, and that would be the division. That would be the division. And I think the Dolphins actually, did they beat them the first time they played? No, they lost the first time. So I don't know how the tiebreaker works in that circumstance. I'm gonna say no, though. I don't think the Dolphins are gonna win. I think Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs are just too good. I think the Bills are playing really good football, and I have a hard time believing that they'll come up to it. They beat the crap out of the Seahawks. Game was closer than it probably should have been. They lost to the Cardinals by 2, and then came around and stomped on the Chargers by 10. So
after you just read off those schedules, I'm tempted to just say, let's see Week 17. And it's going to come down potentially fittingly to a head-to-head matchup. That would be something, but I do think I would favor the Bills. They've got the 1-game lead, and so the Dolphins have to at least make that ground up. And then I do think they're the better team. So, I'll give the upper hand to the Bills.
I feel like there is some hesitation for me with the Dolphins because you don't know which quarterback you're getting.
Yeah.
And Fitzpatrick is playing really well, but what if Fitzpatrick plays poorly? And then now you got Tua, and there's no consistency.
Tua's hurt. So I haven't heard. I don't know if he's going to come back when I believe it's a thumb injury. I don't know if he's going to be reinserted as the starting QB. They've just got a weird QB roulette that they're running over there, and it's
he's on
right
track.
now.
He's on track to be fully healthy for Sunday's game.
Okay, so even this week he could be back. It's just they've got an interesting thing going, and it could come down to I'm sure the coaches are stressing out.
Don't doubt that.
It cannot be easy to have to decide who you're playing at quarterback when you're also fighting for a playoff spot and also a chance at the division. It's got to be a stressful, because that's supposed to be your one rock. That's supposed to be like, all right, here's who we're trotting out there every Sunday, and then move the other pieces around. But
that's true.
Yeah,
it's true. So I guess mine is kind of my first one is kind of encompassing over the last 2 weeks. It's got to be the Buccaneers. 2 games in a row, they've lost 27-24. Their record is 7-4. I believe they're still in the wild card. But they're a low seed.
7-5.
Yeah, they're 7-5. Yeah. And they are currently, if this would pull up for me, they're currently the 6th place team, which means they have to go in and play the Packers. They would play the Seahawks week 1. If you remember, there was one team that I told you that I think could blow up the whole thing, and that's the Seahawks. So Bucks need to figure it out. And if you're a Bucks fan right now, are you worried? Are you freaking out about the position that you're in?
I haven't quite pinned down what the issue is with the Bucks, and I really haven't seen any, analysis either of what the Bucks' issues are. They had starting this year, they had that dominant defense, and I don't know if that defense has more kind of regressed to where people were predicting it to be. And I think one of the big things is the offense. I know the couple primetime games that they've had, the one blowout versus the Saints, and then I believe there's one more that I caught a glimpse of. Their offense just doesn't look in sync. It almost looks like, you think about like a basketball team that has too many superstars that kind of all need the ball
Yeah.
to kind of optimize their offense. It almost looks like just guys are out of sync. Like Mike Evans is touching the ball, like only 3 or 4 times a game. They've
Yeah.
got multiple running backs that are just coming in and out that probably break up their groove throughout the course of the game. And then, who knows how many receivers. They got like 5 receivers that all could be, number 1, number 2, number 3 guys on any other team.
Yeah.
So you just wonder what kind of rhythm they're in. I know it's like a very abstract thing, but it definitely plays, it influences just the flow of the game and the kind of effort level of some of the players. If they're not touching the ball, they might take a route off here. Oh, I'm not getting the ball this route, so I'm not running this as hard as I normally could be. Or who knows? I'm just kind of
Well,
hypothesizing, but
here's something interesting for you. So I pulled up the stats of the Buccaneers team. Mike Evans has 48 receptions on 81 targets. He's just barely over 50%.
yeah,
Chris Godwin has 49 receptions over 60 targets. Rob Gronkowski, 37 over 62. Scotty Miller, 27 over 43. The one that has probably the best reception percentage is Antonio Brown, who has 20 receptions for 29. But he only has 168 yards and no touchdowns.
yeah.
I think that I was watching ESPN, which not a great place to be, but it wasn't Stephen A and Max, so
Okay.
it helps a little bit. And I read a couple articles too that were talking about the philosophy difference between Tom Brady and Bruce Arians.
Yeah.
Being someone who had Bruce Arians with the Colts twice, he is a very much down the field passer. His offensive style is down the field. That's not the way Brady's ever played, really.
Yeah.
Because he never really had receivers that went down the field. Albeit, take Randy Moss out of the equation.
That's the only one.
But I mean, think about the other receivers Brady had throughout his career. Deion Branch. Deion Branch wasn't even a down the field player when he was with the Seahawks. He was he was catch it in the middle and run it or catch it on the edge and go. Dante Stallworth was another receiver he had. Edelman, Amendola, even Rob Gronkowski really wasn't a down the field receiver. So I think it's just a methodology difference between the coach and Brady, and shame on anyone who didn't realize that was going to be a problem. If they thought Brady was going to come in and be able to do what he wanted to do with his quarterback and his team, what Bruce Arians wanted to do, that's bad coaching, frankly. And I feel like some of it is obviously Brady's fault. He's not placing the ball where it needs to be placed, but I think some of it also comes down to play calling and planning and knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your quarterback. We talked about this with not during a podcast, but previously you and I had talked about making sure that you're putting your quarterback in the best position, mainly with Patrick Mahomes. If you remember, and this was when he first came into the league and popped off, and I told you, I said, if they don't play to his strengths, he's not going to be successful. Same with Lamar Jackson. You got to play to his strengths. And it feels like, from where I'm as an outsider looking in, Tom Brady's not having his strengths played to. He's playing a different way than he normally would. So, it's interesting to me. I'm worried about the Bucs. Obviously, I picked them to win the Super Bowl, but I did say that the Seahawks are the only one, in my opinion, that really could screw that up. Um,
Hmm.
and right now it looks like they've got a round one game against the Seahawks is where it's
Right.
currently sitting.
Yeah, and I'm seeing. I actually just pulled up a interesting stat here. Up until this past Saturday, this past week, uh, Tom Brady had thrown 19 straight incompletions of passes traveling 20 or more yards. So we know that Bruce Arians
Yikes.
loves that down the
Yeah.
field game. Um, and it looks like they're just taking shots down the field. They're not landing, and then they're stuck, with 2nd and 10, 3rd and 8s.
Yeah.
And like you brought up, Tom Brady is very known for being in those 3rd and shorts and making life easy and just moving the ball down the field.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's a definite disconnect between the play calling and their quarterback.
All right, moving on. I think we've touched on that. What's your next
Yeah.
one?
Next interesting one, for me is over in the AFC North
Okay.
with you would have guessed it, the Browns taking over the Ravens in the standings the past couple weeks here. Um,
Yeah.
as I guess the Ravens have had issues seemingly for like the past month and a half here. Um, and for as inconsistent as the Browns have been, they're 8-3. If it weren't for the Steelers running the table so far, they could be fighting for the top spot in this division. So what do you think? I mean, do you think the Browns are a real kind of I won't say division contender, but playoff contender, or do you see them as coming in with a really good record, but not really making a deep run?
The Browns are really, in my opinion, the Browns are really hard to get a read on. You and I have talked about that. I mean, heck, you and I have gone back and forth um, multiple times this season.
Yep.
Week one, we're like, wow, never mind. Take back all the things we said against the Browns. And then,
Yep.
they play the Colts and beat the crap out of the Colts. And we're like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe they're actually pretty decent. And then, we bounce back to, well, okay, same old Browns.
Yep.
I think their saving grace is the fact that they have two running backs that have both both have 100 over 100 and 100 attempts, and both have over 700 yards, and they have a total of 10 touchdowns on their running back game. I don't think Baker Mayfield is a great quarterback. 61 completion percentage, 2,108 yards for 17 TDs and 7 interceptions. That doesn't do it for me. It's serviceable. He's making it work. Doesn't do it for me. They've got a great defense. Their defense is playing incredibly well. Myles Garrett is playing incredibly well. 9.5 sacks currently. So it looks like he's going to easily hit double-digit sacks this year. To answer your question, though, are they a real contender? I can't say that they are. And the reason why I can't say that they are is the simple fact, if you look at the NFC West. So different division completely, different even conference. But I'm not sure I would consider the Cardinals or the Rams or the 49ers necessarily contenders. Maybe the Cardinals. But if the 49ers really want to win, they still got to get through the big dogs, which in my mind, the big dogs are Seattle and the Rams. If you can't get past the Rams and you can't get past Seattle, it doesn't matter. So the Cleveland Browns have to, in order for me to consider them being that contender, they have to be able to beat the Ravens, and they have to be able to beat the Steelers. And this year, we haven't seen them beat the Ravens. We saw them get utterly destroyed by the Ravens and utterly destroyed by the Steelers. They lost 38-6 to the Ravens and 38-7 to the Browns.
Yeah, they
So
play the Ravens week
2
14
weeks.
again.
So if the Browns come in and they beat the crap out of the Titans, I think that puts a notch in their belt. But it's that Monday, December 14th game that I'm looking forward to for them, and that's really where the decider's gonna be. Because I mean, look, they won a game against the Colts. That's great. They won a game against the Cowboys that they probably should have lost. But who have they beaten? I mean, they beat the Bengals, they beat Washington, they beat the Cowboys. Dak was gone by that point when they played the Cowboys. They beat the Colts, so that's a playoff team. But they lost to the Raiders, the Ravens, the Steelers, they almost lost to the Jaguars, and they almost lost to the Eagles. It's hard for me to say, you play the schedule you're given.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a long-winded answer to say I don't think the Browns are going to be. They may make the playoffs this year, but if I'm a Browns fan, I'm not getting too excited about who they'll have to be, where they'll have to be. And if they get into the playoffs, they're going to end up playing the Bills currently, and I think that's a hard game for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I think you brought up a good point with kind of asking who have they beaten so far, and it's not a very lengthy list. So, I think the Browns kind of have a high floor offense with the two running backs that they have, but I don't trust Baker Mayfield to get in a shootout with, um, one of those top teams in NFC. And
I mean, they could end the
we
season
got to
10-6.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. They could realistically end the season in the top half of that conference, the NFC, get into the playoffs. I could see them being like a higher seed, first round out, one and done,
Yeah, possible.
kind of team. But I reserve the right to change my mind. They've got some tests, some matchups coming up that will test the team, and if they win those, then I'll have some more confidence. But
Yeah.
I kind of agree with you on that.
My next one would have to be just where is it? The Saints. I mean, Drew Brees getting injured. I'm not sure anybody expected them to be playing as well as they are playing with Taysom Hill.
Yeah.
I'm not willing to say that
passing yards.
Yeah, not willing to say that he's a franchise quarterback. And I think New Orleans will see that as well. But they made it work. And that leads to one of my questions. So I touched on the Saints, but this is the bigger question. The bigger question is the NFL handling this COVID-19 the right way? And the reason I say that is look at what they did for the Raiders, Ravens, and Steelers.
Yeah.
And look at what they did for Denver. They basically told Denver, deal with it. You're on your own. Find a solution. But yet with the Raiders or with the Ravens and the Steelers, like, here, let's move your game 3 times.
Yeah.
They moved it to Monday night, then they moved it to Tuesday night, then they moved it to Wednesday.
Yeah.
So
they did come out with the NFL, that is, I guess I want to call it an excuse or reasoning for why they were lenient one way but not the other, and I think they mentioned some negligence on the Broncos end where they weren't wearing masks and the QBs were all together, something along those lines. But this is such a tough question. I mean, on one hand, you could say you agree with the way they did it with the Broncos, because you say if you test positive, if your team doesn't follow the protocols, you got to find someone to play.
Even if they do follow the protocols, you got to, in my opinion, you got to find someone to play.
Yeah, but then, so that brings up another interesting question. We've seen it with a couple teams now where we see, say, one team on a Monday or Tuesday have a couple positive cases, and then the team that they played that previous Sunday also come up with a couple positive cases. So then your question is, all right, which team is do we punish both teams? Do we punish the team that had the first test positive because then they gave it to the other team potentially? So it just brings up this whole
Oh,
cascade of complications.
I
I
don't
don't
like
envy their decision making.
I don't like
What they have to
this.
do.
I
Yeah,
think you should. I don't think we should change games. Even if it's the
yeah,
Colts, you play with who you got. And you know what? There's talk around the league of them adding a quarterback to their practice squad and then quarantining him, literally quarantining him in a hotel room for the rest of the season. I'm being serious. The Colts have literally talked about there was press in Indianapolis and questions being asked if the Colts would do something like that.
yeah.
And it's
The
like,
question with I kind of agree with that, especially for when you got like the Broncos
yeah,
playing
they
the
wanted to bring
Saints.
did you see that they wanted to bring one of their coaches?
Yeah, their coach.
Like, and then the NFL is like, oh, well, we're worried
No,
about
no.
you're going to store players on your coaching staff. Huh? Like,
Yeah,
that was the dumbest. That was the dumbest. You know what? I think Stephen A wrote that. Stephen A or Skip Bayless wrote that defense. Because realistically, who's going to keep a player? What player is going to sit on a coaching staff
yeah.
to maybe someday get to play in a game?
Yeah.
Trent
The
Richardson? I mean,
he wasn't all that good.
no, but like, that's my point.
The issue with that is like, I mean, say let's take this potential week 17 Dolphins and Bills matchup,
Okay.
right? Um, let's play it out. They're fighting for the division. Everything lines up that it's this huge week 17 game, and Josh Allen tests positive
Okay.
in the middle of the week. He can't play. Um, I mean,
Sucks to
if you're
suck.
the NFL, yeah, but if you're the NFL, you also have an incentive to postpone that game because it's going to be highly watched. Um, it's
Yeah. I
there's
mean, the
so
money
many levels
talks.
to there's so many levels to these decisions. Money talks also, but also just competitive integrity. You'd hate for a team to lose a divisional spot or playoff spot, uh, because of a COVID test. That would be quite a disappointing way to end the season if you were that team that ended up losing. So I don't. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect answer here. I really don't.
Realistically, I think that you may end up with two AFC East teams in the playoffs.
Mm,
So I don't think if I'm the Dolphins and the Bills, personally, I'm not super worried about that. I mean, the difference is obviously a playoff home game and a non-playoff home game, but
right. I was just using that as an
yeah,
example, but there could be much
bigger things at stake.
higher. Bigger things at stake.
But see, the question that I guess my counter to that would be, you deal with injuries all the time.
Mm-hmm.
COVID's basically
Yep.
an injury. I mean, you've had it.
Yep.
You've been through it. Hopefully I don't have it, but possible I could have it. Possible anybody could have it. So, that's kind of the way I look at it. Is another injury, and
Yeah.
it sucks. But
I think it just sums up the whole season, the whole year as a whole is there's no perfect answer, and
yeah,
it's just a weird time to
yeah.
be playing sports, to be doing anything. So
I I feel bad for Denver fans. I mean, they're 4-7. John Elway needs to draft a quarterback that's actually can get the job done. But I mean,
yeah,
their quarterback play, he had 9 attempts. He was 1 for 9 with 13 yards and 2 interceptions. He had more interceptions than he had completed passes, and that just feel for the Broncos fans because that sucks.
yeah, that's terrible.
So, all right, what you got?
This one can be quick, but it's got to be a weekly question from now on because no one's pulled away in this division. But who you got? NFC East. Who's winning it?
Uh,
Their records look the
uh,
same as it did like 2 weeks ago,
uh,
3 weeks ago.
who did I predict winning that in
I think we had the Eagles
at the
like a
beginning
couple
there?
weeks ago.
Hold on, let me pull up
We all had the Cowboys at the start of the year,
yeah.
and then we switched to the Eagles, and they're all like 3-8 and 4-7. So it's still anyone's division.
Um, you know who I'd really okay, so let me answer it this way. You know who I'd really like to see? I'd love to see Washington.
Yeah,
Alex Smith make a playoff run.
yeah, yeah,
That would be cool. Um, Realistically though, I'd have to look at their schedules to figure out which one I would say, but I think would want Washington. I think the Eagles are the best team in the division right now with who they have. Eh, but I think I'm going to go with Washington. I think they have the most talent defense wise. I think they have the most experienced quarterback, and you just don't know what you have at quarterback with the
yeah,
Eagles. And Zeke looks, if Ezekiel Elliott was getting
phenomenal.
100 yards per game, I would have to tell you I think the Cowboys could pull it off. But realistically,
Yeah, leading the league in fumbles.
yeah, it's that's not good. He's having a
Yeah,
really bad year.
I,
And
I think
so yeah.
I agree with you on Washington. You know, they actually have a couple skill. I mean, Alex Smith. He's got that high floor that we all know. You know, Antonio Gibson at running back, who is kind of this I want to say rookie or second year, kind of blossoming into his lead
I
back
want to
role, and
change
then
my answer.
change it.
Yeah, I want to change my answer real bad.
Looked at the schedule.
They play the Steelers this week in Pittsburgh. They play the 49ers. Then they play the Seahawks. Then they play the Panthers. And then they play the Eagles. The Giants don't have a much better schedule. They play the Ravens, Browns, Cardinals, and Seahawks. Oh my gosh, dude. This is.
I'm sticking with Washington because I don't think anyone else in that division's gonna win more than like
Oh my
2 games the rest of the year.
The Eagles have the Packers, Saints, Cardinals, Cowboys, and Washington. Oh, okay. I'm picking Washington, but
Yeah.
like
The winner of this division is gonna have probably 6 wins.
I said week two that for the first time in NFL history, we are going to have a team that has a 6-10 record in the playoffs. Because I don't think there's 2 games here for anybody to win.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's bad. It's real bad.
Washington. I'm going with Washington. They've got Terry McLaurin,
Yeah.
and Antonio Gibson, Alex Smith.
And Daniel Jones is also injured for the Giants.
Yeah.
So, I guess the question is to piggyback off of that, and this can be one of mine as well. Cowboys fire their coach? Do they re-sign Dak? Does this just prove that Dak is a good quarterback, that they need him?
I think so. I mean, they got to re-sign Dak. The coaching staff, you haven't really heard any more rumbles from the locker room. I don't know, Jerry Jones. If he gave Jason Garrett as long as he did, you have to think that he's going to keep Mike McCarthy around for a little while.
Yeah.
I think they run it back with Dak next year. Maybe they make some offseason additions, and
I think for once in their life, they're actually gonna have some cap space too.
Yeah, so I think they try it again next year, and they'll make a decision with the coaching staff depending on how that goes.
So you think at least he'll get at least 2 years?
Yeah, I'll give him 2.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, there's a chance they may be drafting a quarterback this season.
They're gonna have a draft pick that they probably aren't expecting. So
they'll have
a decision to make.
They currently have the 4th. Yeah. The 3 teams above them are Cincinnati, Jacksonville, and the Jets.
Yeah.
So They could stumble upon a good quarterback there. They're sucking for Lawrence.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
else you
no,
got?
no way Adam Gase still has a job
Yeah.
once
Oh
they're trying to
God,
get
man.
Trevor Lawrence.
Next, what do you got next on your
um,
talking points?
we covered the NFC East. We kind of next one we kind of touched on, but the Raiders, they had quite the blowout this past week, and the week before that almost beat the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm.
But earlier this season, if I'm remembering correctly, have handed the Chiefs their only loss.
They have, correct.
So the Raiders, I think we both were. I know I was a little higher on them coming into this season. Um, Trying to find
I
their
had them at
record here.
7-9.
Yeah, 7-9. They're 6-5 at the moment. Um, what do you think of the Raiders last month here, last 5 weeks? Currently at the 8th spot in the playoffs, fighting with Baltimore, potentially New England.
Yeah.
Which Raiders team are we going to get? The team that competes with the Chiefs, or team that loses by 30 something to the Falcons?
Well, you know, that's an interesting question, and I guess I'd follow that up by saying which Raiders defense are we going to get?
Hmm.
Because I feel like this team is going to go the way that defense goes. There's no reason they should have lost to the Chiefs. They should have probably won that game. Their defense did not play well. They lost to the Patriots. Again, their defense didn't play well. You know, they play the Jets this week. They better beat the crap out of the Jets. Then they play the Colts. Colts are coming to town. They play the Colts. And then they finish up their season with the Chargers, Dolphins, and Broncos. Right there, there's 3 games right there that they should win. The Jets, the Dolphins, and the Broncos. Those are 3 games they should win. Colts is a 50-50 and Chargers are a 50-50. Because you don't know which Justin Herbert you're going to get. You don't know which Philip Rivers you're going to get. I think you're going to see somewhere in the middle. I don't think you're going to see... if they don't blow out the Jets this week, I think they're done. I think they've shot their wad. They're done. They're not going to finish this season out well. But I still think this team can make the playoffs. I think that they can be a team in the playoffs that can do something, but they're going to need some help from some other teams. They need the Ravens and the Steelers and one other team to beat up on the Browns. They need the Dolphins to lose a couple games.
Yeah, and right now the way it's looking, if they kind of keep sticking around 500 and get into the playoffs as even the 8 or 7 seed, they're going to have to play Pittsburgh or Kansas City.
Well, there is no 8 seed. There is no 8 seed. It'd be the 7th. No, there's 7. First 6 or 2 through 7 play. Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. I got it pulled up on my screen.
Was I thinking of
you were
thinking of baseball.
Yeah, I think you were thinking of baseball. So they would right now the Colts have to play the Chiefs week 1 at Arrowhead. That's not what I want to have. Is it still called Arrowhead? Is that politically correct?
I think so.
Okay. If Colts move up, you're looking at they're going to have to play the Chiefs. Not what I want to do. Tell you that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it's just going to be an interesting team to follow.
Although the Raiders, if any team can beat the Chiefs, it's the Raiders.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, if it looks like if there's one team that's going to knock them off,
and they beat them in Kansas City too.
Yeah, that would be quite the one. Well, probably not 1 seed, but quite the upset.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, did happen. So, let's see. Let me pull this back up here. Speaking of, I guess next couple things are kind of more so bold predictions.
Okay.
and we were just talking about the NFC and who's going to be the top seed, whether it's the Steelers or the Chiefs. I want to just just go over this with the Steelers, the schedule so far that they've had, um, and ask you a question after that. So week 1 they beat the New York Giants. Week 2 they barely beat the Denver Broncos. Week 3 they beat the almighty Bill O'Brien Texans. Week 4 they beat the Carson Wentz led Eagles. Week 5 they beat the Browns. Week 6 they beat. I might be a little off with my weeks here because I think they had a bye week somewhere here, but
They did.
next week they beat the Titans, which I remember correctly. There were some referee issues in that game, a couple weird calls. Next week beat the Ravens. Week after that beat the 3-8 Cowboys. Week after that beat the 2-win Bengals. Week after that beat the Jake
1-win Jaguars.
Jake Luton led Jaguars, and then the week most recently they beat the Ravens with like 10 positive COVID tests, no Lamar Jackson, and they only won by 5.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go out and say it. I think the Chiefs end up being the top seed in this conference, and I think the Steelers. If I remember correctly, they have a decently easy schedule the rest of the way, but I don't
Except
think
the Colts.
Steelers, other than the Colts, I don't think the Steelers are as much as their record kind of make them seem to be.
Well, I don't necessarily agree with you on that one. You've got Big Ben, who's thrown for 2,800 yards, which isn't very much for Big Ben if you think about it. But he's thrown 25 TDs and 6 interceptions with 10 sacks. James Conner is at 645 yards rushing with 5 TDs. Benny Snell had a really great game last week against the Ravens. He has 73 attempts for 255 yards. Chase Claiborne has 611 yards. I feel like 250 of those came in one game. Dante Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster are all playing well. Those 3 combined have a total of 28 TDs, with Eric Ebron having 4. So that's your 4 best receivers right there. You've got TJ Watt with 11 sacks, Bud Dupree with 8 sacks. Did Bud Dupree just get hurt? I think Bud Dupree.
He did.
Yeah, so you're losing Bud Dupree. So I don't disagree that the Chiefs are probably the best team in the AFC. But if I had to look at
the NFC by accident.
Yeah, you did. It's fine though. I can't remember what the Chiefs' schedule looks like the rest of the way. Here's the deal: the Chiefs have to play the Saints on December 20th. Drew Brees is going to be back for that game, more than likely. Maybe they don't play him if the Saints are already in the playoffs, but the Saints are playing for the 1 seed right now in the NFC. So they want to play that game. Breeze is going to want to play that game. So from that standpoint, I can see the Chiefs being and it's in New Orleans at Christmas time. That's going to be a rowdy. Well, there's not even a crowd. There may be some kind of crowd. Even if there's a small crowd, that's going to be a rowdy game. And the Saints will have something to prove in that game. So I could see the Chiefs dropping one more game. I don't see the Steelers in their remaining schedule. I don't see the Steelers dropping more than one game. I just don't. I see them either losing to the Bills and the Bills or the Colts, not both. Unless
I guess the way I see it more is I don't think they're going to be the team coming out of the AFC. Representing the AFC in the Super Bowl.
Oh no, absolutely not. Yeah. No. I don't think they will be. I think they've gotten incredibly. Again, we need to see what their defense is going to do without Bud Dupree. But the Chiefs are by far and away the better team in the AFC. Period. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, done. Argument over. I mean, he's the better quarterback, and we've seen him go up against Brady. We've seen him go up, you know. Does that mean that I think they're going to be the Chiefs are the number 1 seed? No, I don't. I think the Steelers will hold on to the number 1 seed unless they just have a complete and utter meltdown.
Yeah. Okay. That's fair. My next bold prediction is with the Seahawks, and I think
Lose 3
as much as
games.
their no, no, no. As much as their defense still concerns me, it's getting better. But just looking at their schedule, I think they win out. That's my bold decision. Bold prediction is they win their next 5 games. They've got the Giants, they've got the Washington football team, they've got the Jets, they've got the Niners, and they've got the Rams. So 1 or 2 tough games at the end there, but a relatively easy schedule. I think they can win out and potentially
Be that 2 seed.
definitely, yeah, definitely get the division. Potentially the way that the Saints play out with no Drew Brees at the moment. Maybe they even get the NFC. But that's my next bold prediction.
I would say that I agree with you. I think that their remaining schedule is very easy. They've got the Giants, Jets, and Washington, who probably have a combined record of 9 and 20. I think 9 and 20 or something. With the Rams and the 49ers, though, you never know what you're going to get. And Seattle has to go to Arizona to play the 49ers, and they don't do so well in Arizona for some reason. So I don't know. I feel like the Seahawks are usually good for losing 2 games in their division, and they've lost those 2 games. So I mean, I could see them pulling it out. I could see them winning out and being that challenge. It really just comes down to, as we've talked about before, it comes down to Russell Wilson's play. Which Russell Wilson shows up, which Russell Wilson is playing. That's what it comes down to. From my standpoint. I just realized I'm wearing a Washington sweatshirt. This is not the Redskins. It's University of Washington. Sorry. Washington football team. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Not that other name that we can't say anymore.
Yeah.
Did you see that they're thinking about keeping that name? They're just going to be the Washington football team from now on?
Yeah. There's no way. It's so bad.
It's such a bad name. But
there's no way. I
digress.
Yeah. Well, last question I had for you was just a fun one here. 3/4 of the way through the season, just about. I think most people have it pinned down to probably 2 or 3 guys, but who's your MVP so far?
Oh man, that's a hard question. If you had asked me 3 weeks ago, I probably would have said Russell Wilson. If you asked me that, but since you're asking me today, I think I have to say Patrick Mahomes. I mean, dude's just playing so well. And the MVP is not now most valuable player on their team, Derrick Henry. Easily. The Titans are not good if Derrick Henry gets injured. The Titans are a rollover team if Derrick Henry's not there. So, and I think you could even make an argument for someone who's a defensive player of the year in DeForest Buckner. I saw a stat from that when I was watching the Colts game last week that when DeForest Buckner was in the game, teams averaged 2.8 yards a carry. And when he was not in the game, they were averaging almost 6 yards a carry. So, I mean, right there, that's a huge difference. So, from my standpoint, it's got those are the things. Most valuable player on their team makes the biggest difference. I think DeForest Buckner goes there for the Colts. I think Russell, if he plays well these last 5 weeks, I think he can edge him out. But there's got to be some falter in Patrick Mahomes, and right now we're just not seeing it. We're just not seeing that falter.
Yeah, I mean, think there's a lot of I guess recency bias is always a thing with MVPs.
Hmm.
So it really is going to come down to kind of who looks the best the last 4 or 5 weeks here. I mean, Russell Wilson had an electric start, had a few rough games, but has kind of hopped back on in the conversation past couple weeks now. Patrick Mahomes kind of reversed it because it was a little quiet to start the season, but now is just lighting things up. And then I think the most consistent person this whole time has probably been Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, 33 TDs for four with four
Yeah,
interceptions, 3,100
he
yards
he
exactly.
really hasn't had like a bad week even. Um, he's just been consistent every week. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be a hard decision for the voters on who gets that.
I mean, things you have to look at with Patrick Mahomes is 30 TDs on two interceptions, compared to Russell Wilson
Yeah,
with 31 and 10, and Aaron Rodgers with 33 and 4. I mean, I
yeah,
think those are your
take care
three
of the
two
ball.
candidates. Patrick Mahomes takes care of the ball better than them. You know what I'd love to see Seattle do, and what I'd love to see Green Bay do is actually, well, Green Bay actually does a fairly good job of it, but I'd love to see Seattle actually get an offensive line to protect Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
He's got
compared to
35
like
sacks right now.
compared to 2015 to 18, this line looks great.
Well,
But yeah,
true,
it's not great.
but I
It's
mean,
not.
Joe Burrow was sacked 32 times. I mean, that's Andrew Luck level. Like,
Yeah,
I just, you can't expect your quarterback to get hit that many times and stay upright. And,
yeah.
luckily Wilson has, but, freaking Carson Wentz, we want to know why Carson Wentz isn't doing well. Guess how many sacks there are on Carson Wentz? Take a guess.
He's the worst. He's leading the NFL. I know that. It's got to be like 40 or something.
46.
Yeah, yeah,
46. That's
yeah. I did.
insane.
They did play the Seahawks on Monday though, and for as bad as their line is, I don't think he's adjusted. And obviously Carson Wentz is having a terrible season. Um, there were just times where he's holding the ball for 4 or 5 seconds, and then the sack happens. Um,
I think no
you
one's
know,
getting
you
open. I think it's bad play call.
yeah, it could be play calling, but I mean, if you're the quarterback at that point, you got to know that you got in the NFL like 2.5 seconds. So maybe they got to run plays for him to have options at 2.5 seconds. But if you're not, you have to have that internal clock as well. That
Yeah.
you hit 4 or 5 seconds, and you're like, all right, whose arm is reaching for me right now?
Yeah.
I gotta either roll out, buy some more time, or get rid of the ball. So
Leads me to my last question for you, and I think this is one that I came up with a while ago because I was listening to it coming from my car. I think I came up with it Monday, but so you just had Matt Patricia fired with the Lions, okay? Eagles not doing well, right? If you're a Lions fan, do you want Doug Peterson as your head coach if he gets fired from Philadelphia? You're blowing
mm,
up. You're blowing up Detroit anyway. Like you're starting over. There's no way they'll have Matthew Stafford for a couple more years, but they're in a state in my mind. If I'm taking over as front office in Detroit, I'm trying to offload Matthew Stafford and most of my and players that I can get good draft assets from, and I'm
yeah,
I'm I'm blowing it up and restarting because we're just not there. So the question
yeah.
is,
I don't.
do you want Do you like Doug Peterson? You want Doug Peterson as if you're a Lions fan, should they be wanting Doug Peterson as their head coach if he's fired from Philadelphia? Because I think he's going to be.
I don't know if I do. I, you asked me that 2 years ago, I would say yeah. Um, I don't know if I do. I think there are other candidates that are more deserving um, of a shot at taking over with a clean slate, like the Lions want to do, and kind of building their own uh, team and building their own. What's the word I'm looking for? Just vibe. Their franchise.
Mhm.
And I feel like Matthew Stafford's kind of they're going to have to start thinking about a replacement here soon. Um, maybe if Doug Peterson was coming in this year and he had a couple 2 or 3 years left of vintage Matthew Stafford, but I think he's going to be trending in the wrong direction. And to bring in Doug Peterson, um, I don't know if that seems like the right move. Um, I would want if I were a Lions fan, I would want to start focusing on QB replacement, building through the draft, get a fun, exciting head coach who
Who?
that everyone's talking about, the 49ers defensive coordinator.
Okay.
I'm blanking on his name, but he's kind of at the top of the list for I know a lot of teams looking for head coaches. So I think maybe you get someone like him in there and just build that culture from the ground up.
Maybe Tom Brady retires and
Yeah,
Buzz becomes a head coach up in
up in
Detroit and
Detroit.
in Michigan where he played college ball. Hey.
Yeah. Hey,
That was just kind of
I don't know. What do you think?
I mean, he's from Bellingham, Washington, so hey, he's a Washington guy.
Okay.
No, it's a hard question for me because Super Bowl winning coaches don't come every day. But he's only won one Super Bowl, and he's had 9-7 seasons, or 7-9, and now having this 3-7-1 season currently. That I don't know, but it's an interesting candidate, and I'd be interested to see what people in Detroit actually would want if that's somebody they'd actually want. Because, if I'm for some reason the Colts fired Frank Reich, I hope they don't. I think he's a great coach, but if they did, I'd be interested to see if Doug Peterson was in the running in that discussion.
Yeah.
That'd be
It's
interesting.
Robert Saleh,
Yeah,
the
okay,
49ers defensive
49ers
coordinator.
defense. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that. That name sounds familiar.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's an interesting question. That's why I wanted to pose it to you. I don't think I'd want him as the Colts, but, we're talking about blowing everything up. Maybe you do get a fresh start and just, clean slate it and call it a day.
Yeah. Yeah. It just seems like with the NFL, there aren't that many coaches, unless it's kind of just it's been a long time and maybe bridges have been burned, but it doesn't seem like there are many NFL coaches who get let go on a team that they've done as poorly as Doug Peterson has been doing with the Eagles this year, and then immediately take up another head coaching job with
Yeah.
someone else. You've seen it a lot. You see all these head coaches on the side, like Wade Phillips, I think went to Houston for a defensive coordinator, and then Jim Schwartz is somewhere as like an offensive
He's
coordinator.
in
Maybe
where is he? I think he's in Minnesota.
yeah. I
No,
have to look that up.
he's in Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yeah, Jim Schwartz is
I
in.
think was Jim Caldwell one.
Jim Caldwell was, yes.
It just seems like all these head coaches who kind of have these really poor seasons, they end up going and being
Oh,
a
actually,
coordinator on
Jim
another team.
Schwartz is with the Eagles,
Oh,
defensive coordinator.
okay. He was, yeah.
Oops.
But um, it just seems like if you do as poor as you do as a head coach, you don't immediately go land as a head coach somewhere else. I think Jason Garrett another one. Isn't he coaching somewhere too?
He's with the Jets. Jason
Yeah.
Garrett's with the Jets.
So I just don't see him landing that job. Coming off as a poor season as the Eagles are having right now, with fairly high expectations. I mean, they were supposed to be at least kind of fighting for that division, which they still are, but they're going to have potentially 6 wins to win that division. So yeah,
that's crazy.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
All righty. What else you got?
That was it. That was I was ending on the MVP question, but you brought in one more good one.
All righty. Well, guys, I think that's gonna be it for this episode. Zach and I are gonna be doing some planning and talking and kind of discussion around how we frame more of these shows in a way that is enjoyable for you guys. And what we mean by that is kind of how can we talk about more than just the NFL in this hour time frame. We're not eventually we'd love it to be a 2-hour show. I think both of us kind of agree that we'd love it to be there, but we just also agree that it's not there yet. When we grow big enough and we get big enough, we definitely think that that's something that we'd like to get to. But with that being said, we definitely want to give you guys more than just the NFL, because NBA is going to be starting up, college basketball's up right now, so we're going to be talking about and planning ways that we can discuss more than just the NFL or more than just the NBA or whatever sport we choose for that week. So we're working on that. So if that interests you, if you have any ideas or any suggestions, drop those in the comments on the YouTube video or in Twitch chat sometime during one of the episodes. We'd love to hear those. But know that we do want to be talking about more than just the NFL. We enjoy talking about the NFL, but we also have other passions as well, especially with all the sports kind of coming into the fray here. So with that being said, I hope everyone has had a magnificent week. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll pass it over to Zach, and he'll go ahead and close us out.
Yeah, good to be back. Let us know. We're going to be brainstorming, like Dan was mentioning, the next couple weeks here. We got college basketball, NBA, as quick as it seems, is starting up here in about 2.5 weeks.
The 11th.
Yeah, I guess preseason.
Yeah, it's the 11th.
Yeah, preseason in a week. So we're going to be brainstorming just how to kind of format this to fill kind of what we're thinking around our typical hour, and how we want to cover more sports. I know the NFL is going to be getting really interesting here in the last month, so we want to make sure we're covering all the information that you guys want to see and want to hear. So let us know.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like us on YouTube, follow us on subscribe on YouTube, all that fun stuff. Hit the bell and you'll get all of the updates on there. And then we will be back with episode 13, I believe, next week. And yeah, guys, appreciate everyone that stuck around and everybody that watched, and hope you guys have a great rest of your night.